And during the judiciary hearings, Representative Irwin, when hearing that, said that seems so un-American. And there was some discussions about creating a bill, and it was part of these bills as they were in the committee, I understood. And then when they moved out of the committee, the jury trial language was removed. Right, but the point is that this is why this is our position that there is already a right to a jury trial, and there's a right to present a defense by the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act itself. Yep. And the problem is that it's not being acknowledged at all. It's not. And I know you understand all this. I don't mean to be lecturing. I just, I would like to suggest that if a real fix on this act to give it some teeth, it has to be. There's got to be an amendment, I think, in the Public Health Code. Because the rulings of the courts have been in the direction of, the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act doesn't, trump the Public Health Code or the laws that prohibit possession or manufacturing of cannabis. It merely serves as a limited exemption when you are in absolute compliance with this limited behavior. And I don't think that it was intended to be, that limited. But in order to really give it the value that it should have, instead of being treated with such light weight, I've always suggested that the Public Health Code, just by adding a couple, simple sentence about except for medical use or something like that, there was an acknowledgement of that. But beyond that, I want to ask you about some of the specific bills and where you think some of your constituents on in your caucus stand.
Can we start with HB 4834?
Yes.
Since that is actually universally speaking the most onerous of the bills, and it appears to be sourced directly from the Republicans and law enforcement.
And let's tell her what it is, because she probably may not have it in front of her.
One of the issues also is that even though only 4 bills were voted out of committee, what they actually did was encapsulate several of the bills back into 4834 and 4851. And so really there are probably 7 or 8 bills that actually came out of committee, and there are multiple things now. And some of the changes that they have tried to make in 4834 are actually very, very bad for patients in the way that it deprives us of the basic security of the program when we signed up.
Right, and what we're talking about is there's language in there, and this is really the most distressing of all of it, and the language allows for not even law enforcement, it's what's the language?
Law enforcement officials.
Yeah, not even someone who has a badge and has gone
Forest rangers are included in that.
Right,
a long list of officials.
Very open-ended, and it allows them access to the registry in the normal course of their duties. If the standard now is probable cause. Mm-hmm. We had always suggested that they get a warrant like they would the same manner that a police officer would to get into someone's home under a Fourth Amendment analysis, that if they had, provided an affidavit to a non-detached magistrate who evaluated the affidavit and, would believe that there was enough there to access the registry, they would do that. But the open-endedness of that is scary.
Who's the sponsor of that bill? Is that the Haynes bill?
I believe.
I have that in front of me here.
It is Haynes, yes.
It's Haynes, okay, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I used to say to patients when I would counsel them early on in the program was the first thing you have to be able to do is accept the promise that the state government is going to keep their information private and never give it out.
Yep.
And
do you remember when we were working on the task force? I mean,
sure,
I'm sure
absolutely.
you do. I mean, the issue, remember, was that the representatives from the law enforcement community were saying, we need to be able to, simply be able to verify that the person that gives us the card, we can match it up, with a valid number on the registry. And if you remember, the solution that Rep. Durhall actually came up with was, well, it just would require an upgrade in technology at the department to allow for the officer to in real time put in a number and confirm the status of that registration. No information, no nothing, because the law enforcement community, they said that was what they needed, and we knew how to fix that. The other suggestion I think that was talked about was, or you could have the Secretary of State interface that information. But they refused to do that. They rejected that.
They have implemented a lean interface to the registry similar to what was proposed during those work groups. There's a specification out there for it.
But that was a different situation. That's when a patient or a caregiver was encountering a police officer, and the police officer took the card into their hand and wanted to be able to confirm in some manner that it was a valid card instead of a fake card.
And the Secretary of State did refuse to participate in the program, which is why we're requiring patients to provide the photos instead of being able to interface with the Secretary of State's database. That was their roadblock there.
But the concern here is that now we're talking about, and this is the situation where either the situation that I can understand the concerns of the state police, and I sat across the table from it. And I know this is always going to be. It's the inspection issue. The law enforcement wants to inspect to make sure that you're in compliance. No caregiver is, at this stage is trustworthy of that. Some are not. But the concern is that they're doing an investigation. They get a tip. There's a growing. Someone smells something. They go and they do a trash pull. They do. They check the heat bill. It's higher than it was months before, and it's the only house on the block that the snow is melted on the roof. Okay, so they would go to a magistrate. They would say, we have a belief, in the smell that it's a marijuana grow that's going on there. And typically, pre-medical marijuana, a magistrate would sign the warrant that was accompanying the affidavit, and they would execute a search warrant on the home. We're suggesting instead of just letting them access the registry when, under those circumstances where it's the police officer's belief and then they can automatically get into it, what I'm suggesting is that with that same factual scenario, they get to the magistrate and the magistrate looks at it and says, okay, this is a marijuana grow. Okay, well, this is enough evidence. I'm going to allow you now to access the registry and confirm whether that address is attached to a, medical marijuana caregiver or a patient. And then if it is, they've been confirmed that there's no, at that point, absent any other, behavior that would give the appearance of, criminal activity, they would be confirmed that it's not illegal, right? And they would not need to go inside, absent. So that was something that was put a little bit more guard there. And the other concern on this is that, there's no check before it happens. I mean, the remedy of whether or not, whatever that standard is that allows the officer to get into the system is only checked in court afterwards. There's no front end checking. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. But that isn't necessarily what the Attorney General wanted, right?
Oh no. He would have the list given and disseminated to.
I believe that they want to be able to run our licenses and have our patient and caregiver status pop up on the screen. And I do believe that there are some things about the way that 4834 is written that could leave holes for that possibility.
Right, like there's language where, the premise is that by having a card that should not in any way, shape, or form be any aspect of establishing probable cause of illegal behavior, to continue a search or, articulate suspicion or what have you that would, but
it's a very, very small amendment there, but it removes our protection that the card is not to be used as probable cause under certain circumstances. And that is a really scary thing for most patients and caregivers.
It's very problematic, and the if you identify what I believe to be the force that's guiding these bills, or the majority of these bills, and you listen to the rhetoric and you see where they're going with it, the puzzle pieces start coming together.
Right, but there's got to be an appeal to the American in them, doesn't it? The democracy side of it, and especially what about the fellow Democrats? I'm wondering if they see it from this perspective. This is a law that was, came by way of an initiative, referendum initiative, and it's not being honored by the government, and we're having the one individual. I mean, you said it, and I got to tell you, the Representative Kavanaugh talked about it also. There's one individual, one political force that is driving this entire thing, that's making the entire change, and one of the parties is just, kind of following suit with that instead of recognizing that that is the minority position. If you look at the votes across the state, and you got to get 75%, that it's a dangerous place for them to go in terms of.
I agree. I mean, it hasn't really stopped them though on too many things. I mean, I thought that trying to take on embryonic stem cell research, and defund our universities that are not reporting the lineage and parentage of embryos. I thought, that was the height of legislative arrogance, and yet that legislation is in the House version of the budget. If the university doesn't make these reporting that quite frankly no university, no researcher has to make, they will the legislation calls that all funding, state funding for research universities, namely University of Michigan, will be withheld.
They're requiring identification. You're saying that the person that is offering the research material, so to speak, has to identify themselves in the lineage that are.
Yeah, I mean that one of the things that they're asking for is information about the embryo that essentially is information that can't be. It's like asking for the
biological
unknowable.
origin of the embryo is basically what they're talking about.
Yeah, and they want to know, the status of suitability for implantation. I mean, for no other purpose than to prevent this kind of research from taking place. Again, we took it to the people. People voted on it. Not as, our ballot initiative wasn't as successful in terms of percentages of votes as medical marijuana. We were 54% of the vote. But still, again, these are things that are embedded in our Constitution, and you now have the majority party, and certainly a faction of the majority party in all branches of government that are basically saying, well, we know better than the people. And we're going to legislatively overturn what the people voted constitutionally. It's a very disturbing trend. We're seeing it in medical marijuana, but we are seeing it in all facets of our government, including our budget process.